Embassy, switch office.
This is Victor Avila from ICE. We got shot. We got shot. We are on the highway to Querétaro, Mexico. We've been shot and attacked on the highway. I am an ICE special agent.
What is your name, you said, sir?
Victor Avila. Please call Jerry Miles. I don't have another phone.
What did you look at?
Please call Jerry Miles. We've been shot on the highway.
Highway? What is the highway, sir? To where?
Mexico, Querétaro. They know where I'm at.
Okay. Try to remain online, please.
I don't think I've ever shared this publicly. I'll tell you that right now. I don't think I've ever said this ever. I would ask him if he's proud of me.
The work you've done, the work other cops have done, it comes with a price, man. All right, so this is Lou Pimber here. Welcome to the show. Today, I'm honored and really grateful to have a guest here who I get to meet sort of face-to-face for the first time today, although I did get a chance to meet him through his writings, and I did get a chance to hear about him through a very unfortunate incident that occurred in his life back in 2011, which we'll talk about today. But I especially want to thank the Lexit USA for making the introduction for me to meet this great American right here. And we really want to share a story, man. So, before I bring on Victor Avila, I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't share the title of his book right here, Agent Under Fire, A Murder and a Manifesto. I read a lot of books, man, a lot of police books and stuff like that. And this one definitely hit home, man. And, I want to share a little bit from it, if I may. And before I kind of share kind of who you are in detail, but it says, I was alive, but I couldn't trust anyone, or I might not stay that way for long. The Zetas cartel didn't leave any survivors behind. Everyone knew that. With no way to tell who might be on their payroll, I frantically searched each face, police and hospital personnel alike, for any telltale signs of deceit or conspiracy. I had survived the attack on Highway 57, but the Zetas would pull out all the stops to finish the job. I might have made it to the hospital, but I wasn't safe yet. Not yet. I'm going to give you something for the pain, a man in a white coat said. No, you said. No medication, I yelled. If the doctor was in league with the cartel, medication would be the weapon used to kill me. My adrenaline still urged, and I had to feed any pain that was and any bleeding from my side, my leg, and too many other places to count. I had to use my belt as a makeshift tourniquet, but my leg had swollen to the size of a melon. Pain would surely come later, but I couldn't afford to have any senses dulled, not until I knew who could be trusted. Man, so I'm here with retired special agent, Victor Avila, retired supervisory special agent with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE, Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, under the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Man, welcome, Victor. I appreciate you, man. I really do appreciate your service to our country, your service to your community, and your service to the Mexican Americans, brother. All of us that we're proud to be here, man. I'm a proud American as well myself. Let me ask you a little bit. So you're originally from El Paso, is that correct?
That's right, Lou. Thank you for having me. I'm originally born and raised in El Paso, Texas, and born and raised there. And so I always try to communicate to people the uniqueness of growing up on the border. Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely very unique and different from every part of the country.
I spent a lot of time on the border as well as a kid. I'm originally from Nogales, Sonora, born there and lived a little bit in Nogales, Arizona. But being in Tucson, where I'm at now, spent a lot of time on the border, many times running back across because we're being mischievous teenagers, But you lived in El Paso. I'm familiar with El Paso. I was in Fort Bliss, Texas for a while there in the late 80s. And Man, Juarez I was told was bad news, man. So tell me about it. What was it like living on that border town?
Let me tell you, it was very, very unique in the sense of, and you mentioned Juarez because it's a very intricate part of our lives. The border is, and that is for many people is going back and forth from the border, visiting family, shopping, you name it. You're going from two different countries, but yet you're united by business, you're united by families, by entertainment. I grew up when I was after high school and college. I did most of my entertainment. If you want to say the word partying in Ciudad Juarez, because Ciudad Juarez was known as one of the focal points for the entertainment industry. I mean, we would bump into people from all over the country of Mexico, from Mexico City, and people from all over the world that would go to Juarez and Ciudad Juarez to go party because they knew, and it had this fame about it because they had these incredible nightclubs, restaurants, and the service was just incredible. And we were fortunate enough to grow up right next to it.
Right on, man. And so your parents, they're born in Mexico. Is that what I read correctly in the book?
That's right. Both of my parents were born in Chihuahua, and they're immigrated here in the 1960s. They both naturalized. My dad in 1980, my mom around 1990. And I'm a product of the American dream. I love telling that story because my parents did it the right way.
Yes.
I'm a very pro legal immigration person. I really want to emphasize that. And even though that part of the system is also kind of broken, I want to make it clear that that's the right way to come to this country. But the illegal entry into this country and the illegal immigration, I have a big issue with, and we could get into that a little bit later. But
sure.
But my parents worked hard. They took advantages of the opportunity that the United States gave them. That's why they came here, and they didn't come to commit crimes. They came here to have their kids educated. They put. I only have two sisters. I have a twin sister and an older sister. My older sister is a successful property manager. My twin sister's an attorney.
Amazing.
And we went through college. We're the first ones to graduate from a university, high school and university,
right on.
and move on. And so it was, this is what we're living, and this is what I want other people to have this experience. And unfortunately, even within our own country, a lot of people don't realize what they have, being from the greatest country on earth.
Let me tell you something, man. Look, there's a lot of great immigrants that come here from Mexico and do amazing things, and it's that other group that just ruins it for everyone else. Living as a Mexican-born kid in the U.S., I knew I was lucky because I came here as a kid, learning English and stuff like that. But let me tell you something, man. I knew I had something special and an opportunity to do it. And I have a lot of respect for those who actually, they get in line and they do it the right way, because as they say, si se puede, if you just do it right. Does that make sense?
That's right. That's right. And I always push that, especially with what we're seeing at the border right now. And so, yes, you can. Yes, we need to fix that part of it as well. But absolutely, that opportunity is there, and it's right for the people to do it. And I think we have to also focus on kind of re-educating Americans that live in New Jersey and in Nebraska, that listen, you're born into this country. You have these opportunities afforded to you that are not afforded in many places around the world. And I've lived in other places around the world and worked and seen a lot of places. And it's unfortunate a lot of our youth now don't recognize that. And so that's part of my mission too, and my statement as I go around the country doing speaking engagements is sharing that part of the story as well.
Oh man, and not everyone knows that your father was a cop in Mexico for a while.
That's right. That's right. My dad.
A tránsito, or what did he work?
No, my dad was he was never a uniformed police officer. He was a state police officer.
Okay.
And so my dad, this was early 1970s, and my dad got out in the late 70s, early 80s, because the corruption was just out of hand, and the police, as we know it today, was already corrupt back then. And my dad was not a criminal. He's like, I'm not gonna I'm not going to commit crimes, and I'm not going to, just because you're a police officer, expected to do certain things in Mexico, especially because you're a police officer and have a badge.
Yep.
And my dad says I'm walking away from that. Nevertheless, he still has a lot of stories, as you can imagine, to share, as police work is very different than it is in the U.S. And I even experienced that firsthand, working in Mexico and working with hand in hand with the federal police. It is a different animal over there when it comes to police work, when it comes to the judicial system. It's completely different. And so, yeah, I enjoy hearing those stories from my father.
You know, it's interesting. What I have found in my experience with authorities down there is the fine line between integrity is sometimes questionable. You know what I'm saying? And it's very hard for those who have integrity, who want to do the right thing, to last long sometimes, and I hope things are different now. I hope that things have changed, and with a lot of influence from the US training cops down there and stuff like that. I hope it has changed. But I'm afraid we're still a little behind on that. Don't you think?
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, it's not a good thing. And I'll give you an example. When I lived in Mexico, we were forming a vetted group and from scratch, because DA had theirs and ICE, HSI we wanted our own vetted group to work with all our investigations. So we started vetting federal police officers, and we bring in the polygraph examiners, and the first batch of 50 federal police officers come in, and we only get to pass 3 of them.
Wow.
Because and we're asking very simple questions. I can't get into the logistics of it, but I could just tell you that they're all failing. They're all failing because of their histories, and they're all cops. And you're talking about human rights violations, you're talking about a lot of other things in there. And it was crazy times trying to get a vetted unit, a trusted vetted unit, to work with us because of the levels of corruption from these individuals.
Man. So that takes me to another point: human trafficking. I didn't know that Mexico did not have a law against that defined human trafficking as being against the law, being a crime, until 2009. Is that correct? That's right.
I got into Mexico in 2008, and I got in there when they were working on that legislation, and I was fortunate enough to come in at the very end of that 2009. We had a case, and that was a human trafficking case from Mexico, where this organization was bringing victims from the Tlaxcala area, Puebla area, into Atlanta, Georgia. And that was the first case that was used under the brand new federal anti-human trafficking law that was passed in Mexico. And so these individuals were prosecuted federally in Mexico for the first time ever, a collaboration between the government of the US and Mexico. It was great.
Got it. And talk a little bit about your law enforcement history. Initially, you were a federal probation officer, is that right?
I started off as a state parole officer for the state of Texas, for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Realized that there was exactly kind of the same job on the federal level as a United States probation officer, paid a little bit more, and had a little bit better benefits, and became a federal probation officer, had moved out to San Antonio. And then as a federal probation officer, I dealt with special agents from all agencies, Secret Service, FBI, DEA, and would interview the agents to conduct a pre-sentence investigation report for the United States courts, for the judge. Correct. And the more I interviewed these guys, and the more I got to get to know these guys, I got to the point where I didn't want to just read about them and interview them. I wanted to do what they were doing. And that's what prompted me to apply back then as a U.S. Customs Special Agent. This is before DHS was created.
So you got FOMO, you got the fear of missing out. Like, what am I missing out on? This sounds
a little
exciting.
FOMO, a little FOMO. I love that. Yeah. It's, I always love the special agent Avila ring to it, and if for people who don't know, a special agent just means federal criminal investigator. That's all. It's just a fancy name for that, but it's a specialized training, and I was fortunate to get picked up, and very fortunate to go back to El Paso as my first station.
Right on, man. So now look, you didn't do this by yourself, right? You had a and I'm not even going to refer to this person as a sidekick. This person was a partner, right to your left and to your right, and sometimes in front. And I believe she goes by the name of Claudia. Is that correct?
Her name is Claudia Avila, and this is the love of my wife, the love of my life. Let me tell you, this woman People talk about their wives and their partners, and I'm very biased here. This woman is an incredible woman, not only in her own right for being an intelligent woman as she is, as successful as she is in her own right in her own career in the pharmaceutical industry, but just as a partner in life with me and with our children. And after the shooting, and we could get into that, you talk about resiliency and sticking it out, and if there was any reason ever to leave me, there was a reason right there to say, you know what, I'm not going to mess with this guy. This guy is damaged goods. I always kid around now and I say, you know what, if she had reason to leave me before, because if I wasn't that good of a husband or a father, she could have said, I'm out. But let me tell you, I don't know, you read the book. It comes across that. And when I wrote the book, I didn't have that in mind. I didn't think, I'm going to mention Claudia here, and then I just wrote the book the way I wrote it, the way I felt it. And then I started getting the feedback and people telling me, hey, you mentioned your wife a lot here. You mentioned your family a lot. And it was obviously because they're part of my life. They understood, especially my wife, my career, the days that I missed being with the family. I missed the birthdays. I missed the special events because I was at work, and especially in Mexico, I neglected my family a lot. Mm-hmm. And so she held the fort for me, and not only before, during, and to this day.
So when talking about the assignment in Mexico City, okay, what made you go do that? I mean, you had a pretty good gig in El Paso and other places you may have been, but what made you decide to go that far south of the border to do your job? I mean, in the book it says you did it because you wanted to serve others, right? You wanted to serve other people, but what prompted you to do that?
And I love that question, Lou. Thank you for that question, because my wife and I had this idea. We grew up in El Paso, born and raised there, both of us. And I kid around. I said I had a list of 252 reasons why. Mm. And the last reason was an economic reason. Yeah. You're right. We were fine in El Paso. My wife was successful. I was doing good at work. We had a beautiful home. Everything was great. And I had this opportunity to serve in Mexico, and my wife didn't blink. My wife said, let's go. And she left her job at the top of her game. And we understood each other, that we wanted something bigger. We wanted our kids to travel, to see the world. Sure. We didn't know how much that was going to actually happen because of what happened to me. Yeah. And it actually, it's kind of weird how things happen and how God works in mysterious ways this way. But she didn't blink an eye. She said, when I got that opportunity to go to Mexico, she says, let's go. Vámonos. And let's go. Vámonos. And we were gone. And so having that support and that backup from your own family means a lot.
And in the book, you say you wanted to make a difference in the world.
It's because, in El Paso, you're stuck with what we call the bag and tag cases, right? Yeah. You got the low driver. Sometimes I would do additional, control deliveries and take down a couple more guys. And then that was it. I wanted to expand investigations. Yeah. I wanted to see the abilities of our jurisdiction. As a lot of people know, HSI, with a combination of immigration and customs law, has the enormous amount of jurisdiction of many violations of law. And I wanted to see that. I wanted to see the financial violations. I wanted to see the human trafficking, the intellectual property rights violations, commercial fraud, you name it, right? Yeah. It's anything that has a nexus to our border, we could investigate. And I wanted to do that. And by going to Mexico, it gave me the opportunity to explore all that.
Look, you wanted to see what you were made of. That's what you wanted to go see, right? Because look, some people put the badge on and they're happy to, we're kind of just being there and not pushing the envelope too much. Some guys, they say, how much more can I take? How much more can I do? How much more can I serve? And that's the impression that I got from reading your book and stuff like that. And on another note, there's this, man, when I talk to people who are born from Mexican immigrants, and myself included, look, I owe it to my mother and father to be successful. I owe it to them to be successful. And look, And when that apple falls from the tree, I tell people, let that apple roll out, man, so that you can plant seeds somewhere else and grow your own crop so that you can live that American dream. And look, too many people come to the United States and don't take full advantage of the goodness and the opportunity that's here. I mean, people aren't escaping to go to some other countries. They're escaping to come here. There's a reason behind that. And if your parents, my parents, myself included, we get immigrated to come to the United States, I owe it to that past generation. And by the way, I owe it to my next generation to be successful. You know,
that's right. That's right. We want the same thing or even better for our children, right?
For sure.
And I'll share this with your audience. We're celebrating my daughter's graduation from college. She graduated college in 3 years. I mean, this is what we want. This is the American dream.
Yeah.
This is what we want for our kids. Betterment for them and better for their children, to leave them in a better life in a better world. And so that was the kind of a whole in a nutshell. Let's go. And then, you know, in the Mexican culture and the Hispanic culture is, well, you're getting away from family and nobody really leaves anybody. And we struggle a little bit with that, but we had to fight a little bit with that. But it didn't mean that we didn't want to be close to our family. It's just, we kind of realized, listen, this is our family. It's my wife, me, my 2 kids, this is our family. And then my parents and my in-laws and my cousins and my everybody else. We love everybody else, but we did this for a better good and let me tell you, my kids they have lived, obviously they've gone through a lot of things, but travel for them, the world has shrunk for them.
Yeah.
They'll get on the plane and go to Germany like if nothing. To them, they've seen the world and that's a good thing. I want them to have that experience and that we were fortunate to be able to give them that.
That's incredible, man. Look, I have 2 kids myself. My daughter is Air Force. My son is Army. You know, I tell him, you guys are going to do it so much better than I could ever have, man. I mean, my son's going to become an officer. My daughter's thinking about doing the same thing, you know, military officers and stuff like that. So I'm super proud of them. Nice. I can feel the joy in your face, man, from being proud of your kids. You know, I'm super proud of my kids, you know, but let's just be honest here, man. Let's be honest here. Okay. It isn't always a good time. You know, when you're a cop and you're working in the world you were working in, family time was a challenge at times, I believe, wasn't it?
It was an incredible challenge. I mean, I remember in Mexico City, it got to a point where my kids were asking me, what was I doing at home? Yeah. What are you doing here, Dad? And it doesn't feel good. You know that you've been separated, because even when I was home, Lou, I was on the phone, I was on the BlackBerry. I carried 3 phones, and I was physically there, but I wasn't there. Yeah. And my kids immediately noticed that, and the detachment became very clear. And they're like, well, Dad, what are you doing here? Well, actually, you know, I'm leaving tomorrow because I have to travel. And so that was a big issue. It actually became a big issue because Mexico City, the ICE office at that time was the busiest ICE office in the world. And we were understaffed, and you can imagine we were running around. I was in Central America, all over the United States, investigations everywhere, trying to make a difference, doing good, taking down human trafficking organizations, taking down Chinese human smuggling operations from China through Mexico, through New York, human trafficking, rescuing children, rescuing women. It was a good thing, and it's a lot of work. And so I don't know if this came across in the book as you read it, but I was torn because I enjoyed it. I was enjoying my job. I was having a good time. I was doing it. And there was a lot of rewards when you rescue children and you rescue victims from human trafficking. It's a rewarding thing, because those cases are very hard to investigate. But at the same time, I hated being away from my own family and my own kids. Look. And so it was of a balance, and it's hard. It's hard. And, you know, being a diplomat, you think, oh, you're a U.S. diplomat, you're going to have these fine wines and dinners and parties. There was a little bit of that. I'm not going to lie. There was a little bit of that. Yeah. But even that got old quick. I didn't want to go to the dinners. I didn't want to go to the wine. I wanted to be home. Yeah. And it was a challenge.
Here it says, Claudia, as always, was a rock. She was unflinchingly supportive of me. But it says, I also saw the hurt in her eyes. I had always worked hard, but I had never thought of myself as a workaholic. But I was committed to the mission and didn't know how to disconnect. Look, let's just be honest, man. When you're a very, very good cop, you're probably not the best husband. You're probably not the best father. And at a certain point in time, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be issues. I mean, at one point, your wife threatened to throw your phones into the toilet. You know,
That's right.
Look, I remember coaching Little League, my man, and I remember getting phone calls from some guy. I'll just call him Chewy, wanting to deliver me a bunch of cocaine. I'm like, and the hardest part for a narc is to say no to a drug deal. You know, and my son's like, "Who was that?" I said, "You don't want to know." You know, and you can't. It's so hard to disconnect.
It's very hard to disconnect, and it's hard to share a lot of the information that you can't talk a lot of. You could say a little bit here and there, and my wife was always very comprehensive of that and understood that. But it even got to the point in Mexico where she was like, enough is enough. Like, listen, something has to change here. And I was consciously trying to change that going into 2011, but it almost seemed like I did it on purpose, because as soon as 2011 came, man, I was in Panama, Guatemala, Denver, Arizona. And she's like, are you doing it on purpose? Like, I'm not doing it on purpose. This is just the way, the sources are here, the investigations, they just take you to a certain place. Right. I mean, they call me trips at the office because I was the one that traveled the most. Got it. But and I'll say what you just said, Lou, and I thank you for those words, but I don't consider myself a super agent. Oh my God, I was a good cop. You know what? I was a working agent, and I use that term a lot. When I speak in my public speaking, people tell me, "What does a working agent mean?" It means that I actually worked. It means that I actually was proactive. It means that I actually was trying to make a difference and create cases and be not just, there's other agents, there's officers that just don't do a lot of work. They just kind of wait around, do the minimum. And I'm proud to have been one of those that actually put cases on the ground, operations on the ground, and rescued some people and made a difference.
You got to earn that title every day. That's what guys like you've got to get out there and you want to earn that title every day. Of a special agent, of a narcotics detective, whatever, you got to earn it every day. Otherwise, you feel like it was just given to you. You didn't get out and earn it, But there's times, I mean, I recall the same thing from your book. You say sometimes you'd come home in the dark and you felt like you were breaking into your own home, right? And man, it's got to wear on the family, man. But you're fortunate to have a solid wife who was supportive of you. And had your back, but at the same time, I think she kind of held you accountable. Would that be about right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember in Mexico City, some of these weekends, it would be a Thursday into a Friday, and she's like, "What do you have this weekend?" I said, "Actually, nothing this weekend. I want to do nothing. I want to stay on the couch and I want to do nothing." And she's like, Right. I booked 2 tickets and we're going to the beach. And I'm like, I didn't want to go to the beach. Yeah. But I'm very glad that she did that. And those moments that were available and I spent time. I mean, I think I talk about the book once where coming back from a vacation in Cancun, when we landed, I didn't go home with them. They're like, "When are you coming back? When are you coming back? We're doing this takedown." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm coming back." And in Cancun, my wife refused. She says, "You're not going to take the phone during the day. You're going to leave it in the safe in the hotel. And you're only going to check it once in the evening." And you can imagine at 6 p.m. checking that phone. It was crazy, right? With emails and I remember that one time flying back, landed in Mexico City. They took a cab home. I took a cab to the federal police and didn't come back home for another 2 or 3 days wearing the same clothes.
Wow.
I mean, that's even after vacation, that's the way it was.
Yeah. We all make choices and then we have to live with those choices, but I got a lot of respect for your work, man. And I want to talk a little bit about Highway 57, man.
Absolutely.
I know it was, this incident occurred to you, shortly after you had plans with the family for Valentine's Day, I believe is what it was. Is that correct?
Yeah, the assignment came on Valentine's Day on February 14th, 2011. That morning, obviously, my wife had made plans, to go out to a nice romantic dinner at our favorite sushi restaurant in Mexico City, and that all went out the window once that assignment came because it threw everything off. Not only forget the personal plans, even my work plans had changed dramatically because I wasn't previewed to any of that. I was blindsided by that assignment as well. And so even after I challenged the assignment and fought it because of all the reasons that the alert that the ambassador had put out that no one can travel on that highway.
Right.
The intel that we had from that we had in our office, plus the intel from the Monterey office of the HIDTA cartel, and all that was ignored by my supervisors. And I challenged it as much as I could, and then they, the order came, and I had to go. And they told me, you will take Special Agent Jaime Zapata, which was a TD wire. They call them TD wires, a TD temporary duty assignment. Yeah, just arrived in the country just a few days before, and I hadn't met him because I was out myself, and I had just gotten back myself. And so I met him that afternoon on February 14th. And I remember calling my wife and telling her, I'm sorry, but whatever reservations, you're not gonna be able to cancel it. And it ended up being a very memorable Valentine's Day because
the kids came through.
Because they came through. When I got home in that evening, I won't spoil it for people when they read it, but now it's just I'll never forget that. They were the waiters and the waitress, and there were the servers.
Yeah.
And we had the dinner at the house. My wife made the arrangements to have the food taken to our apartment, and it was a very special evening. And then I headed out the next day, February 15th in the morning.
Yeah. So you're on the road, you're in an armored vehicle, right? And you guys are headed down the carretera, Highway 57. You know what I find interesting when I read that part of the book, and again, this incident happened November 15, 2011, correct? And,
That's right.
And what I find interesting, and look, my heart bleeds every time I see a law enforcement officer get hurt in the line of duty, doing something he loves and for the protection of others. It breaks my heart, man. And what's interesting about that incident, and with all respect to Jaime Zapata and his family, is you guys were two strangers who got to know each other very well on that road trip. You got to know each other very well on that road trip, and he shared with you kind of who he was. You got to know the guy. He just opened up and talked to you. He's on TDY. He's hanging out with Avila. And I see that. I'm like, it's almost prophetic, man. Like it's so sad.
It is very sad because you're right. I didn't know Jaime Zapata. I met him the day before, but it's like I knew him all my life.
Yeah.
I mean, there was never a dull moment in that Suburban. There was never a silent moment. There was never an awkward moment. We were chit-chatting back and forth. He was telling me everything, like if I was his best friend, like if I've known him forever. Yeah. He was telling me about his fiance, his plans, and the schooling, and the this, and the dentist, and the, oh my goodness, and the border, and he reminded me a lot of myself.
Yeah.
I saw myself in him, in how like he had the ambition, that healthy ambition, that this guy wants to do something. And I knew, guess what, that he was a hard working agent like I was, because during that drive, he got a call from the port of entry down in Laredo on one of his cases, and a load. And I'm like, I was known for that in El Paso, and people would be like, stop putting alerts at the bridge. Stop it, because, those are aside from the other cases that we would get. Those are additional cases. But I would go and scout stash houses, and I would see the vehicles parked outside. Yeah. And I tag them, and I didn't know. One day out of the blue, they're like, hey, we have a car here loaded with, 25 keys of cocaine. And I'm like, what car? I wouldn't even remember. And then I get, oh my God, put the hit on this one. That's what he got. That's what Jaime Zapata got. And I remember in his voice, and it gives me chills telling you this, because he was so proud of telling the sector communications on the radio, telling them, hey, I can't respond because I'm out in Mexico City on a special assignment. Yeah. He was proud of that, man. He was like, hey, I'm busy over here doing this. And that said a lot to me. I knew this guy was a hardworking agent and was dedicated to the job. And we were kidding around a lot. I told him, hey, you got to brush up on your Spanish. He wasn't a good Spanish speaker.
Era pocho.
And I said, yeah, no, peor que pocho. I said, you gotta speak some Spanish, man. I remember going back to school and in college and took an additional Spanish course, because when I hit Mexico, let me tell you, and I'm a pretty good Spanish speaker, but once you get to that level of Spanish, it's a whole different level. And my Spanish improved dramatically. And I told him, listen, one of the reasons I was successful, I think, in Mexico is because of the Spanish language, because I was able to communicate with the government of Mexico in a very personable way.
Yeah.
And I told him, you got to brush up on the Spanish, man. You want to come over here? And we would kid around a lot about that. And so you're right. It was an incredible moment, and I got to know him like a best friend.
So you guys are driving down that highway, and let me go back a little bit. So Blue 52, okay, who I guess remains unnamed in the book. Okay. Yeah. This person says to you, you've got to go pick up this equipment. And clearly it was a bad idea. Clearly there was warnings that of the jackings that were occurring and the shootings on that highway. And let me ask you this question, right? And couldn't you have just said no?
Probably. I probably could have just said, I probably got to the point and said, refused the assignment, and then probably get curtailed from the city. And then, and that's where the decision comes, because when, I'm there with my family, my kids are in school in Mexico City. Yeah. That decision is not just affecting me. Yeah. It's not affecting my wife. My wife at that point worked at the U.S. Embassy as a contractor. So, I could easily been more selfish, and maybe in this case I should have, and because of the results, right? You don't know the result, but sure. It got to the point where I fought it, and I fought it pretty hard. I made my supervisor, very incompetent individuals here, no leaders here. I'll put it to you this way: they're not leadership material. And I said, you go knock on that door. We called out the deputy attaché, what we referred to as Blue 52, because he looked like Peyton Manning, like a quarterback. Yeah. And I'll quote those words that he said, and I will always quote them, and they're in the books. He says he wasn't aware of any security issues in Mexico. And so when you hear that from your supervisor's supervisor, what kind of response do you get? That the whole country of Mexico is a security issue. Of course, it's at a critical 4, just like Afghanistan, just like Iraq, like Baghdad. Yeah. The State Department ranks it at that level because of a level of violence and because of a level of insecurity. Right. What do you mean you're not aware of it? What do you think? Where do you think you work? What do you think? It's an incompetent answer, right? So and then I need it tomorrow. Bring it. And so you're there like, okay, I got to make arrangements now.
What do you think was his motivation? Because I find it hard to believe he didn't know the risks. Okay. You know what? Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. And that is how incompetent he was. But what do you think, going back now, was his motivation behind it?
I think it was a combination of things. I think it was the reason they needed this equipment was for a huge money laundering case. Okay. A case that I was very, very little involvement in. Everybody was helping with that case. It was a case out of Colombia. Mexico came into it. We seized $40 million in cash, and we're in it. And it had the attention of headquarters in Washington, D.C. And it was the biggest money laundering case ever in the history of ICE, in the history of the U.S. Customs Service. Okay. That's how big this case was. It was a great case. I don't care. I really don't care. The security of your agents is more important, but I think they were clouded by that. I think the glory of that, but this is the irony of it. It didn't matter because the case never happened afterwards because of the shooting. Wow. Yet these individuals still got promoted anyway, and they're heads of offices as I speak to you.
Wow. It's very unfortunate. Sometimes, you talk about leadership, right? Leadership comes in so many forms, and I think leadership, especially in the area of law enforcement, when you tell someone to do something, you better be 100% vested in that decision. You better be 100% backing that decision. And should things go wrong, you're going to roll right along with it. You're right. Like you're right on target with that, Lou. You're right on target because the reason they made these decisions not knowing, and the dangers in the law enforcement world when you make a decision, when you pretend that you think that oh my goodness. I learned the hard way as a United States probation officer in front of a federal district judge. I learned how to say, I don't know in public, in open court. Yes. That, not to be embarrassed. I don't know everything. Correct. But you know what? I'm going to find out and I will learn. And that federal judge, Harry Lee Hudspeth, taught me that it's okay to say,
Your Honor, I don't know.
Correct.
I don't know the answer to that question, but guess what? I will find out, I will learn, and I will come back and bring you that answer.
Correct.
And that was a respect, right?
You're absolutely right.
And these guys, these supervisors, that was their inability to do that. They did not have the, what's the word, integrity to say, I don't know. I don't know. No, they pretended to know that they knew, and they got an agent in the line of duty killed.
It's an integrity issue, and when it comes to leadership, meaning just say you didn't know, just say you don't know, and if someone brings up an issue to you, I think they should at least look into it a little bit, validate it, because they should definitely have valued yours and Jaime's life greater than the mission itself. So they definitely put this whole mission, the glory behind the mission first, before they put your officer's safety in first. And so it costs someone's life, man. And you're on this highway, and you go, you pick up this equipment, and the Suburban is loaded up coming back. And it sounds like you guys have had a pretty good grasp on situational awareness. Is that about right?
Yeah, I mean, I've driven on that road many times. I even as a TDYer myself, a year before that, I had escorted an agent and his family on that same highway. Yeah, I knew that highway, had driven that highway many times. We stopped at the Subway sandwich shop that we always used to stop. I mean, I was very familiar with the area. It was you talk about situational awareness. It was a very calm day. Very little traffic, beautiful weather. I refer to Jaime as this is San Diego weather, another perk of working in that area of the country. Yeah, it's February 15th and it's beautiful, right? And so absolutely. You talk about being alert. You're always alert in Mexico. Sure. You're always at a high level. I'll tell you this real quick. This story. The first time I got to Mexico, by the time I traveled out of Mexico, it had been at least 8 or 9 months. And the first trip to me outside of the country was to Texas for a conference in San Antonio. And when I landed in San Antonio, there was this weird decompression when I landed in the United States. And I'm like, what is that? Like a sense of relief, right? Yeah. It's because in Mexico, you're like this all the time. You're tense. You just live that way because of the security issues. Even when you go to the store, even when you go to a party, even when you go to, you're talking about, you talk about the colors. You're almost at red all the time. You're at least orange. You're never at yellow. You're never yellow. Never.
Look, complacency can get you killed. If you're not aware of your surroundings, the people around you, who's following you, who's sitting next to you, body language, how they sit, how they stand, all those things, it can cost you. It can cost people their lives. And, so you're going back, and the nightmare started folding right before your eyes in that side view mirror when you saw vehicles pulling up behind you. And then what happened? It sounds like they did a moving roadblock on you maneuver.
That's what they did. I mean, these guys highly trained. One in front, one SUV in front, one next to us, started pushing us off to the right shoulder. The SUV in front is slowing down dramatically. Yeah. The one on the driver's side of Jaime is pushing them to the right simultaneously. So your instinct is to avoid a crash. I mean, we're mirror to mirror. These guys have AK-47s out, pointing at the window, yelling as we're rolling down to 10, 15 miles an hour. Get out, pull over, all in Spanish. And we're trying to, Jaime, I tell him, go. He's trying to avoid them initially, but they get back in it and eventually are successful in bringing us to a complete stop on the right shoulder.
So you guys came to a stop. These guys get out. Now your vehicle is surrounded. And look, there's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks out there, right? And when it first happened, when this incident first happened, I was one of those guys that said, why in the heck was that window rolled down? Why in the heck why? But you know what? I wasn't there, man. I wasn't there. But then I realized there was a defect in that type of vehicle that when it comes to a stop, the doors unlock. And in the haste, it sounds like, I believe it was either you or Zapata, in order to relock the vehicle, you ended up rolling the window down a little bit. Is that about right?
That's right. That's exactly what happened. one of the shooters, one of the Zetas cartel men, we didn't know there were Zetas at the time, actually opened Jaime's door. I mean, he went to, and I describe it because he was even surprised when he yanked on the handle, the door opened. And then Jaime immediately grabs it and slams it shut. And even he was surprised. And even the other were like, oh. And so they come at the vehicle and they start yanking at the doors. We are locked. We lock the doors.
Yeah.
But the lock buttons are right next to the window buttons.
Yeah.
And that's where my window was rolled down a couple of inches. We didn't even know. We didn't know my window had come down. We're still on the driver's side. I'm still yelling at them. And in Spanish, we're Americans. We're U.S. Embassy employees. We're U.S. diplomats. This is a diplomatic vehicle. Look at the plates. It's got diplomatic plates. Yeah, I mean, yelling. We'll all have our hands like this the whole time. And, they have it surrounded like a U shape.
Yeah.
In the front of us. Highly trained, highly sophisticated, highly trained. Yeah. And it wasn't until I was talking to that main guy, the main guy that was running the squad there. Let me identify myself. Let me pull my diplomatic passport. So we're not who you think we are. Whoever you think that we are, obviously you know that we're not.
Right.
We're Americans. I was over and over yelling at the top of my lungs, and without notice, you just had two of the shooters come in, and then they introduced two barrels, an AK-47 and a handgun right by the window right here.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did that, I raised the window. I realized that the window was down and raised the window, and it caught the barrels of the AK-47 and the handgun. And I see him with the rifle, shaking it up and down. And I'm bracing myself like this against the post of the of the Suburban.
Yep.
And without notice, they opened fire. And I see Agent Zapata gets striked, and it gets hit in the multiple times in his side, and then eventually in his leg. I get hit 3 times. I don't even know I got hit 3 times at that time. My hearing is gone. I mean, they're shooting right. I have hearing loss on my left ear right now still. And I grabbed the handgun, and it burned my index finger and my thumb, and it just peeled the skin off because the gun was so hot. I was trying to pull the gun, and eventually they pulled both barrels out, and I raised the window. And it went up, and they just sprayed, over 100 rounds. It was shooting at it. And I'm like, go, go, go. I pulled the lever, the shift down to drive. And Jaime was still kind of becoming unresponsive, but he was able to put his foot on the gas. I pressed his knee down on the gas pedal. It crashed the front of the SUV to get out of the X, trying to get the Suburban back on Highway 57. It really just rolled into the median. Jaime then became unresponsive. I tried to get the Suburban and grab the wheel and try to put it back on. And that's where it ended up. These guys kept on shooting the whole time. And they took off. The 2 SUVs I see one take off. Then I see the second one take off, but then the second one makes the U-turn. They come and park right in front of the SUV, of our SUV. They get off, and they're right in front of the hood. And they look at me, and I look at them, and they just, with 2 AK-47s, just spray the front windshield. And people can see these pictures online. And they're trying to penetrate, the bulletproof glass. At that point, I'm just kind of frozen, and I just see them run back into the SUV and take off. And that's when I make the call to the U.S. Embassy. I'm attending to Jaime's wounds, and it's a nightmare. We're there for 40 minutes until somebody showed up.
Wow. Obviously, you're in trouble when these guys are doing, mobile roadblocks. They come out in a half moon shape, and these guys have had some kind of tactical training.
Absolutely.
And I'm so sorry to hear about Jaime Zapata. It breaks my heart to see that, when any law enforcement officer is killed in the line of duty, and the nightmare didn't stop there. Obviously you saw an ambulance come over. Turns out it was one of the bad guys. That was really the ambulance guy. A cop showed up, and your instinct to survive didn't leave you until you knew you were in good hands. Even after arriving in the hospital, you just didn't know who to trust, and so
the fear, it's hard for me to describe the fear, because the fear set in for me at the hospital. And I use the word petrified because I don't know what other word to use. I can't describe the fear that I felt. I thought I was dead at the hospital. I thought they were going to kill me there. I was convinced that they were going to kill me there. and I was begging the federal police officer, the only commander that I was on the phone with, to please send reinforcements, because there was only a couple of federal police officers that initially showed up on the response, and they were around the hospital, but it wasn't secure. And I don't know who had been in the hospital. Like I said, the doctors, this is Mexico. It's a very corrupt country. And I know what the cartels do. And I've seen these cases where they go back to the hospital and funeral homes and they kill these people. And I thought for sure that they were going to do that to us. And so that fear is I don't wish that upon anybody. It was a very ugly feeling of helplessness, of loneliness, of just not the ability to be, I realized I was in a foreign country, and I write about this in the book because being a Mexican American, it was I'm an American. I was born and raised in this country, and I'm a patriot.
Right away, you knew where you were.
Boy, did I know I was an American, because all of a sudden, let me tell you, I was not from there. I was a foreigner. And once they knew who I was, it was very different. And the lines were very clearly drawn that I was not a Mexican national. And it turned into an international incident. But nevertheless, they sent the reinforcements and their SWAT type thing, and federal police officers, and secured the hospital. When those guys came in fully, they came into the hospital room, the trauma room where I was at, and they come in like fully. These guys are like like SWAT, like these special forces type of guys, and
I've been there.
They came in like, Victor Avila, and I said, yeah. I said, we're here on direct orders from my friend from Mexico City. You are secure. This building is secure. And blah, 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 blah. And let me tell you, that's the first time I breathed a sigh of relief. And then I go off on because the staff was like, what the hell? I mean, they see shootings all the time. Police officers and all that. And then I tell them, I'm an American. I'm from the United States, a U.S. embassy. And so, I kind of changed the atmosphere, not the treatment. The treatment, it was always great. They treated me well, but definitely the atmosphere in the hospital changed. Like, oh my goodness, what the heck just happened? Because that hadn't happened since 1985. With Enrique Camarena. Right.
How soon after that did you realize that Jaime didn't make it?
I was in my trauma room, and I think I've been there maybe an hour and a half, when the surgeon from his room came into mine and said, he said in Spanish, he used the word, he expiró. That's the word they use in Spanish. In English, it means translated, like he expired, right? Yeah. And I remember not liking it. I remember not liking that, like, even though in the Mexican culture, that's probably appropriate to use that word. But I just told them to please treat him with dignity and respect. And they said we would. And that's when I knew that he had passed officially.
If you can talk to Jaime Zapata today, what would you tell him?
Well, it's not so much what I would tell him, it's what I would ask him. I would ask him if he's proud of me. That's all. I would ask him if he's proud of what I've done.
Right on, man. Right on. How's his family doing? His mom and stuff like that?
They're okay. They're not good. They're not good. They're not in a good place. It's been 10 years. There's no justice. I mean, just last year, they dismissed the murder charge that charged him, the charge for the murder for his murder. The DC Circuit Court of Appeal dismissed it. I've been fighting along. I have a little bit of good news to share. The Senate brought a bill. I've been working with the Senate and Congress, and there's a new law that's going to get passed here probably next week. It's called the Jaime Zapata and Victor Avila Federal Officers Protection Act. This is to avoid this happening to other special agents, other agents serving abroad. And we added, and their families, not just for attempted murder or murder, but for assaults as well, because we have a lot of agents being assaulted overseas as well. And so it's a good thing that we have this law passed. It's unfortunate that it's not retroactive. We still have to deal with these defendants coming back to Washington, D.C. We're going to have to go back later this year and convince the judge to resentence them to life in prison.
Obviously, a lot of things went wrong. There was no operational briefing. The basic stuff you need on any kind of op. I think that Blue 52 and whoever was his second and third in charge definitely dropped the ball. And yes, I'm going to Monday morning quarterback that because they were wrong. Number one, an operational briefing should have taken place. Clearly a threat assessment. And my God, why would they send you guys without additional protection? You know, and we can talk about that for hours. But, you know, look, the work you've done, the work other cops have done, it comes with a price, man. It comes with a price. And some call it post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic stress. But look, you can't walk away from that career without it staying there with you. In the book, you talk about at some point in time when you were so distressed by it that it felt like the devil was in the room with you.
Yeah. Yeah. That fear that I talk about from the hospital.
Yeah.
I've had some, you know, this is after the shooting, and it just got to a point where it hit me. I was having these horrific night terrors. I was having, forget insomnia. I just didn't sleep. And so when you don't sleep, it just, everything else, the rest of your life is in dysfunction when you don't sleep. Yeah. And so there's those consequences. But I used to have these horrific night terrors of fear. Yeah. And sometimes it had to do with shootings and violence, but most of the time it had nothing to do with that. It was just this fear of evil. Yeah. And I would shiver in my bed in a fetal position, sweating. I mean, drenched in sweat. And my wife would get scared next to me and says, "What?" Because I would wake up crying, and I was so afraid that I couldn't get off the bed. Yeah. All I wanted to do was to either touch her or just to grab onto something, because it was this horrific fear. Yeah. And luckily I've gotten better. Obviously I'm in a better place now, but yeah, I went through those dark days, and people don't understand that. I don't think I've ever shared this publicly. I'll tell you that right now. I don't think I've ever said this ever. And so you'll be the first one in your show that I share this, but I think it's important to people to know, because we have a record number of police officers taking their lives for these incidents that they occur in their jobs, especially now with being a police officer. If it's hard enough already, nowadays it's worse. And so I want to tell people that there is a way to get better. There is treatment. There is life after these traumas, and you can get to the past. It's not about forgetting them. I'm never forget. Correct. There's not one day, Lou, there's not one day in my life that I don't think about Jaime Zapata. But it doesn't mean that that I cannot move on and function with my life and be a contributing member and serve, and that's what I'm doing now. Right. And so it's not forgetting, it's just getting better, overcoming, and moving on.
When I talk to police, I go to different parts of the country and speaking to different groups, and I talk about the whole post-traumatic stress. Is I share to them, look, it is post-traumatic stress, but we can also have post-traumatic success. You know what I mean? And so long as you're clear in your heart and soul between right and wrong, that will allow you, as long as your compass is set correctly, it'll help you cope with the evil that comes with post-traumatic stress. I know the nightmares. I know the lack of sleep. I know the feeling of evil inside the room, but it doesn't make any damn sense. The crying for no darn reason. All those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went through those. I never had a vice, and I'm very fortunate not to. I'm not an alcoholic. I never used drugs. I'm very fortunate because I could have easily done that. Yeah. For me, it was food. I gained a lot of weight. I ate my troubles away, man. I gained a lot of weight initially, and eventually I was able to fight that and be okay. But that was my thing. Food was my compensation, and it was a lot of help from my wife, a lot of help from my family, a lot of help from professionals. Yeah. And then on top of that, I'm dealing with physical. Just last week, I still had a procedure in my back and my hip because I still suffer from that to keep me mobile, because I'm the type of person that I have something to say. I have something to do. Right. I have to, you say about serving. Yes, I want to serve. Yes, I want to be able to contribute. I want to go back because I struggled with my identity. When this happened, all of a sudden, hey, Victor, that's the guy that got shot. Yeah. Well, it doesn't feel good because you know what? I'm a lot more than that. I'm a husband, a father, a son, a brother. And you know what? I was a criminal investigator, and you know what? I had special skills. And they dismissed all that, and it was, oh, that's the guy that survived. Oh, that's the guy that got shot.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I made it special to say, you know what? No, I have a lot to offer, and I have a lot of expertise.
That's right.
And now I'm having the opportunity to be able to give that back.
That's right. Look, it's hard when you lose that identity as a lawman. You go. I felt like I went from being the samurai, to a gardener, living this very peaceful, simple life.
Yeah.
You go from high speed to no speed, and then you are dealing with physical injuries and pain and stuff like that, and the depression, the anger, all those things that come with the post-traumatic stress. Suicide, did that ever cross your mind? You ever deal with that?
No, I'm very fortunate never to have a suicidal tendency. That was never my issue. There's different levels of PTSD. I think my employer, as a matter of fact, never understood. And this is the problem, that a lot of people still don't understand PTSD. PTSD is there's very different levels, very different types of PTSD.
Yeah.
And I think my employer I think they were afraid that I was going to do something, or that I never was. As a matter of fact, my care provider's like, Victor, you want to own 50 guns? That's never been my issue. There's others individuals that suffer from PTSD that you don't want them to have a weapon. Yeah. And so it's important to know, but my employer never cared to know which type I had, never cared. What they did do is they send people over to take my guns, to take my equipment, to erase my email, to take my car, and to take all that and erase me from the agency. That they did. And that only was a factor more to the PTSD. Right. You would think that it would help you, but it only hurts you, and you go more into depression, because now they didn't want me back at the agency. And I struggled with the loyalty to the federal government. I was a federal loyal employee. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I was the last one to kind of find out and kind of hit me in the face. What do you mean they don't want me back? No, they're not going to want you back. And your career technically ended the day you got shot. You just didn't know it. Correct. And by the time you find that out, it's a hard feeling to feel, man, and to swallow. Because I ask a lot of people in conversation to doctors and other professionals, I tell them, well, you stop doing what you do right now. You cannot do what you do right now. What are you going to do tomorrow? Right. And they're like, well, this is what I do. I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. I'm a teacher. Well, you can't be that. You can never be that ever again. And it's hard to deal with that, and you have to come to grips with that. But I was able to find the avenue to be able to serve in other capacities, and the book was a good avenue for me. For sure. Look, it's for the cops who watch this and listen to this, you find yourself in a situation where you're having to reinvent yourself when you leave because of injury or just simple retirement. I had to deal with reinvention. You went through reinvention, and some people choose to reinvent themselves in a negative way. I found entrepreneurship. I'm a business owner. I worked on television as well and things like that. And so find something that allows you to, I found something that allowed me to relive those experiences again in a more safe environment. And I feel for you, man. I have a lot of respect for your situation. Thank you for being candid with us. Absolutely. May Jaime Zapata forever rest in peace. And may he know that, yes, you've done a heck of a job. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you so much for having me today and for sharing, and not knowing that I was going to share some things. And I'm glad I do. I'm every time I do a lot of interviews, and a lot of them are very, very sterile. I talk about the border, and I talk about police, and I talk about the story. But I was looking forward to your podcast because I knew it was going to be this. I knew it was going to be more personal. I knew it was going to be something that I usually do not talk about in a public setting, but I want to. I'm not shy about it. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. You can overcome. You can't. A lot of the result of the feedback I get when I speak, people when they come up to me, I speak to military groups and police groups and different groups. When they come up to me after the presentation, believe it or not, they don't really care about. They're not really asking me questions about the shooting. They're coming back and asking me and talking about family, and talking about the PTSD, and talking about how I'm before them. And of course, a lot of it has to do with faith and God. And I share that with them. And so I feel very good at being able to share that and say, listen, if I could come out of this, you can too from your situation. Absolutely. So Agent Under Fire, that title of that book has taken a very different meanings for people. Are you under fire at your work? Are you under fire at your marriage? Are you under fire with a coworker? Are you under fire where? Whatever you're at, there is a solution because you're alive.
Have you found a place in your heart to forgive those people that let you down, man?
You know, I came to the point where I knew I wasn't going to become a bitter person.
Good.
I always struggled with my wife. I said, listen, I'm not going to be bitter. I don't want to be bitter. I want to be this old bitter man. No. Because I struggle with that. I said, no, I'm not going to be this angry, bitter old man.
So have you?
I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I've forgiven them. What I have, I've kind of forgotten them.
Okay.
I've kind of put them aside. They're not part of my life. They're not part of my life. They're part of the story of my life, but they're not significant to me.
Do you hold a grudge?
No, I don't hold a grudge against them. I definitely do not live like that. You know, people get really angry. These guys got promoted and they got their heads of office, and you know, it's the government and that part. You know the best way I can live is to be successful.
Absolutely.
And that's the way I like to, if you will, get back at people. If I had to get back at somebody, if I had a revenge type of you know what? All I have to do is leave and lead a good life.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Absolutely.
That's all.
In the end, that's all you got.
That's all I got. And I have my family, and I'm happy.
You can look at your wife, say, I lived a good life. Your kids,
that's right.
And Jaime Zapata, I'm sure, is proud of what you've done afterward. And you have to be at peace with your heart with everything in your life right now. And I thank you for your time, man. I know you're a big advocate. You're a big advocate for what's going on in the border today.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna keep up with that. Where can they find your book, Agent Under Fire?
Please go to agentunderfirebook.com.
Okay.
You'll find the links to everyone. You could buy it through Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. Or if you want to go straight to the publisher, Liberty Hill, I have the links at agentunderfirebook.com.
I got mine off your website, man.
Thank you.
I got to go to Dallas and get it signed, okay?
Anytime you're in the area, please.
Hey, man, I appreciate you. I want to thank you for your time. Look, I want to thank you and your family for sticking it out with you, man. And you're a big advocate to law enforcement and to those who have been injured on the job. And may the name Javier Zapata never die. You know what I mean? And so may that his memory always live in our hearts and that of the law enforcement community, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lou, for having me.
Oye, muchísimas gracias, y te deseo lo mejor.
Igualmente, muchas gracias.
Gracias. Well, you guys just heard from Victor Avila and his story of a dramatic ending to the life of his partner and his career and stuff like that. But you also heard a little bit about how people suffer with post-traumatic stress. And look, you got to talk about it. You have to let it out, because otherwise it sits here and then it goes to your heart and you live a very ugly life. Okay, so just want to share that with you guys today. My name is Lou Pimber. Very thankful for the opportunity to put this together. I want to thank Lexit USA for their opportunity for introducing me to Mr. Victor Avila. And if you like what you saw, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys very soon. Bye-bye.